Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. My name is Musonda Mumba, and I'm the director for the UNDP Rome Center for Sustainable Development. On this turning the tide or turning point dialogues, we're going to be talking about the F word, food. I'm super excited to be joined by two amazing voices in this process and who've been really advocates in their own right, all the way in the Philippines, the land of the 7,000 islands. We've got Sherry Atilano, who's joining us, and all the way on the African continent in the beautiful Southern Africa, from that tiny country with a big lake. We've got Mike Nkombo Nkunga from Malawi. Welcome. I'm super excited to have you over here. And Mike, I really would like to begin with you. But before we do, I just want to say that this is a fantastic year. 2021 is the year that the first ever United Nations Food Systems Summit is going to be taking place here in Rome under the auspices of the Food and Agriculture Organization. It's amazing. It's bringing many thinkers and people together to really talk about these different elements around food. You are a youth advocate in Malawi. You work with a civil society organization, Nutrition Alliance, CSONA, and also you are the youth vice chair of the Action Track 5 for the UN Food Systems Summit. And you're a youth leader on nutrition. It's absolutely amazing to have you here. If you can tell us a little bit about the action track in itself, it's talking about resilience, the vulnerabilities that we face, particularly as we navigate a pandemic. What do you think in your mind around sort of, the elements of transforming food systems, thinking about how we build resilience? What do we need to do to protect ourselves from these shocks?
Well, thanks so much, Sonda. And I think you're quite right to say how COVID-19 has exposed the fragility of our food systems, especially during lockdowns and COVID-19 restrictions measures, whereby communities and households were not able to access food in the local markets. So, from the resilience perspective, I do think there are some solutions to tackle such areas. For instance, some of the universalization of some policies. For instance, if the school feeding programs and even other policies like the minimum wage thresholds, if those can be universal, then we'll be able to achieve food system resilience. Because I understand that we need to be thinking of food as a common good, thinking of food same as medicine, and making some of these policies so universal. And the other thing, let me also focus on the local production for local consumption. This can be enhanced, for instance, in the rural communities, whereby community rely on local food supply chain. If there can be a mechanism to enhance local production within their communities, that would be also one way of achieving food system resilience. So
that's absolutely interesting. So how do we think we can better engage the different sectors and communities in the process to take this action?
Perfect. So I think the best way to engage different communities and different groups, for instance, the youth, the women and the like, is to bring them the capacity within their local areas. For instance, local communities in Malawi, where women are the lead in terms of agriculture, need to be given the capacity in terms of the resources, the inputs, and every necessary measures for them to produce. That would be one way of achieving food transformation within their communities. At the same time, there's a global movement, the Act for Food, Act for Change, which young people are championing themselves. So these would be one ways of young people rallying behind such a movement to transform food systems.
No, this is absolutely amazing, the role of young people. So I want to turn on to Sherry. Sherry Atilano, you're the founder and CEO of Agrea Agriculture Systems, Inc., the UN, and also a UN Food Systems champion. Fantastic. At the age of 12, you started teaching farmers about, farming. How amazing. And for the last 22 years, you've been working with many communities on sustainable food systems, but you also happen to be a high-level ambassador on scaling up nutrition. This is incredible. And also you're a youth global leader with the World Economic Forum, board member for GAIN, the Global Alliance for Improved Nutrition, and also Philippines ambassador on food systems. This is just amazing, very exciting. And you also received Champion for UN Women's WEP's award for COVID-19 response. You've heard there from Mike. You come from an island states, as it were, with several small island states. And thank you, Mike, on flagging the power of women and youth voices. In your mind, obviously, you can tell us, a thing or two about leadership through this pandemic, and last year, having received all these several awards. I would love to hear your insight on where you see the imperative to make sure that, the much needed systems thinking, systems changing, as it were, for protecting us all from these stresses and also the shocks that we've faced. Your country goes through a lot of challenges with, the typhoons and all these stresses to islands, as it were. How do you think we can resolve issues related to hunger or reduce diet-related disease and also restore planetary health?
Thank you so much, Musonda, for that wonderful question and the introduction. I think what is imperative to solving food system problems are actually recognizing the fact that smallholder farmers are indispensable in solving hunger and a foundation of food systems. During the pandemic, we worked with 30,000 smallholder farmers in the Philippines, and we're feeding around 12 million people who are stuck in Metro Manila. It was not an easy job. And another one is, I think the silver lining that the pandemic brought us is to really focus on collective action. The action where the government is working with the public sector more and more, together also with the private sector, the civil societies, the academe, now developing different technologies and research altogether, and more importantly, the power of the youth and the women. I want to emphasize in this. During the pandemic, it was so hard to really help the farmers because, as we mentioned, Philippines is a beautiful island of 7,000 plus. So logistics wise, it was really a nightmare, but I think what is more important here is to really adopt leadership through compassion and empathy. And even me as a social entrepreneur in the Philippines, helping farmers bringing their produce to the market in a massive scale, like 200 metric tons in 10 months was not an easy task. And we work a lot with women in the whole supply chain. It's because the women were the first one to go out of their house looking for solution in their problem to save themselves from hunger, to save their family from hunger. And across the supply chain, because during the pandemic, the senior citizens were not allowed to go out of their houses, it was the youth who were going out of their house. It was the youth who would drive trucks, go to logistics centers, and really help us to bring the produce in the market. And lastly, it is really the power of respecting our food producers, but more importantly, bringing healthy and nutritious foods to our consumers.
No, that's absolutely amazing. The role of women as not just caregivers, but change makers. And as you rightly say, and also referencing what Michael said, food as sort of that is something that's nourishing our being, as the importance and the role of youth voices and making sure that we see the sanctity of food, as it were. I'm really glad to hear about the work that you've been doing and also the importance of collective action, as you've said. So how would you see then, how would you sort of bring the different sectors or actors together to be the change that we want to see?
So what we've been trying to do here in the Philippines is, our food systems working before in a silo, right? We really need to do a systems thinking kind of way in solving this problem. And I may share a personal experience. For example, during the pandemic, I really took a courage to write a letter to our government, especially the Secretary of the Department of Agriculture, that we really need to help each other, to help our farmers who are experiencing produce rotting on their fields if they cannot bring it to the market because lockdowns happened during the hype of the harvest season. And lastly is really encouraging our local government units and private sector to adopt in their corporate social responsibilities to bring healthier food options to their constituents. So we work with different mayors, governors, and local leaders to really emphasize that all the more we need to be healthier in the process. But more so, Musonda, what's beautiful in here is I was really the witness of the power of women, because they go beyond just fresh produce. More and more women right now are really liking to do this hashtag plantdemic. We want to plant around our house. You know, we've been doing a lot of urban gardens that in the recent months, actually, we're trying to put a proposition that all cities would allow new growth. And that's the growth of urban gardens led by all these women. So many solutions are happening on the ground because of these interventions, actually.
That is absolutely amazing. I mean, great to hear about those home gardens, and as the philosopher Hippocrates actually did say, the Greek philosopher, let food be thy medicine and medicine thy food. And it's really great you talk about you know, the power of nutritious food systems, and also the importance of really understanding that these healthy systems are also connected to our planetary health. I'm really glad to hear. I'm coming back to you, Mike. You've obviously been, you know, leading charge in your work and working in civil society. What would be your call to action for our viewers today?
Perfect, Msonda. So as the leader for nutrition, especially a young leader for nutrition, my call to action today is I would urge my fellow young people, wherever they are, to rally behind movements that will promote food system transformation. We know that we can only achieve nutrition security if food is also secured in our countries and even in our areas. So it would be good to rally behind these movements. At the same time, climate movements, we know them, let us get engaged and we'll be able to channel our actions, our initiatives through these movements to change our government policies moving forward. Sure.
That's fantastic. Be bold, be part of the change, and be part of the movement. Sherry, over to you. What is your call to action at that individual level?
Yeah, my call to action, I'm a big proponent of women and girls, and hopefully that women and girls are not just a segment of our priority, but a critical mass and a center of solutions. And I do believe that we are just we are also the solutions of our own problem. So I encourage everyone that, you know, we need to start now, and the power of the youth, we are the now, the present, and the future. So I really encourage everyone to really go out and do whatever we can contribute towards sustainable food systems and leadership through planetary health.
Oh, that is absolutely fantastic. The power of women, but making sure that they're critical and they're central to the change that we want to see. I want to come back to you, Mike. If you want a conscientious, you know, sort of climate conscious society, but also one that understands the importance of food systems, obviously people out there would be curious, what got you to where you are today? What gives you hope, and what inspired you to do what you're doing today?
So yeah, being a young person in Malawi, I lead one of the youth projects. So these are the ones that inspire me, because I get the community in touch, community reality of what the perseverance it is in terms of malnutrition and food security. So I led one of the projects, support nutrition improvement project by World Bank back in 2015. So that is what inspired me to be leading nutrition and food security initiative in my country.
That's amazing. A youth project that focuses on nutrition, encouraging young people to understand why food matters. Sherry, over to you. Who has inspired you? What has inspired you to be where you are today?
Ever since, I guess I would always say that the farmers are actually my best teachers, you know, especially those who don't know how to read and write. They teach me life and they inspire me every day. I guess as a social entrepreneur handling 30,000 farmers now, what kicks me off early to bed is the responsibility and the sense of accountability that we need to bring these people forward, and we need to push forward that no one is left behind in all this process in achieving sustainable food systems and, you know, a healthy planet to live in.
Oh, that is absolutely fantastic. I'm absolutely in awe of both of you about your experiences, the communities that have inspired you, and really just led you to be where you are today. So there you have it. You out there can be the change you want to see. I'm afraid this is all we have time for, and deeply grateful. Please check out all our hashtags. This is Playfair for Planet and People. And it's absolutely exciting that we had Sherry and Mike telling us about the experiences today. Thank you so very much, and be safe and have a lovely rest of the day.